Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Mega Man Z. It's a ROM hack of Mega Man X where you get to play as Zero instead of Mega Man. The ROM hack is relatively minimal, which is unfortunate. I wish there was a little bit more to it, but it's still a pretty cool mod, and it gives me an excuse to play through one of my favorite Mega Man titles of all time, Mega Man X. While the game remains largely unchanged, there is different text boxes and character interactions, my favorite being, instead of Dr. Light you get to deal with as far as getting your upgrades, you have Dr. Wily instead. When we start the game, we get to see also Zero, of course, instead of Mega Man, with all the specs for him, as well as the introduction story is done from the perspective of talking about Kiji and Ifune, who create the character of Zero, and like what his thought process was, and then we get to jump into the core game. Nicely done change to the opening title screen, and of course we're going to jump into the first level with the introduction stage. The first of the Mega Man titles to kind of introduce this, which will become kind of a staple for a lot of the Mega Man titles going forward. Of course, we're going to be playing as Zero, and he does use the Z Buster instead of the X Buster or Mega Buster for his hand cannon that he's going to be using in order to fire at all of the enemies. The sword does end up making an appearance though, but it's very late in the game, as it actually is the way we do the Hadoken. Instead of firing at the little fireball for the Hadoken, instead we use the sword to make a slash, and a blade-like beam comes out of it in order to defeat enemies, which I will be getting, and I will be showcasing. This will be a 100% run of Mega Man X, collecting all the heart upgrades or health upgrades, as well as the energy storing tanks, and of course all of the body upgrades for Zero. When we start up, of course, the game, we're going to head over to this first kind of like mini boss here. We're going to do short little jumps up at him, doing a couple of charge shots every once in a while to blast him out of the sky. When he does so, you get the really cool effect of the ground breaking and falling down below, climbing our way up. This game, of course, introducing the wall jumping, which became a fun aspect of the Mega Man X series. Being able to just barely save ourselves sometimes when falling down into pits and kind of getting our way back to safety. Keep continuing on through the level, more enemies at our path, where we're going to, of course, use full charged up Z-Buster shots in order to take out a majority of the enemies that come our way. Pretty simple stuff here, of course, for the introduction level. Just going to make sure, of course, we don't also fall down into any of the pits as we continue to head through the level, taking out a couple of the enemies along the way. Of course, since this was the first level, it's going to pretty much just introduce us to all the basic mechanics. I've always loved these vehicles, where you're able to kind of fire at them and just defeat the enemy if you want to, and the vehicle will keep on moving. And then if you really want to, you can ride on the car and actually take that towards the end of this area where we had to battle a couple of them before Vile ends up showing up for the first time in the game. When the ship drops down, some more of the cars down, and we're just going to blast them, destroy them with just a couple of blast from the Z-Buster and get rid of them. After a few of these, though, Vile shows up, and of course, it's the unwinnable fight, so we have to wait for Vile to kind of drain our health, and he'll capture us. And then, of course, instead of Zero showing up to save the day, in this version, of course, it's going to end up being X who ends up showing up to help us out, before we then get to the Maverick selection screen. Now, for this run of the game, I'm going to do things in a little bit different order than I normally would, to limit the amount of going back to any levels. In fact, we're going to do this so we only have to go back technically to 2 stages instead of multiple stages. We're going to do them in a very specific order, starting off with, of course, still the easiest of the Mavericks to face, and that is Chill Penguin. Now, the only item, of course, in Chill Penguin's level we cannot get is the increase to health, because we need the item from Flame Mammoth's stage, his special weapon upgrade, to help us out in order to break open a container type thing so that we can end up grabbing that. So, for this first level, though, it's a great level to start with. Not only is Chill Penguin relatively easy, but of course you also end up getting the leg upgrade. It's the only of the body upgrades you're pretty much forced to get. If you don't get any other ones, you have to at least get this one. Though, you do end up getting kind of an alternate to the Z-Buster or the, hand cannon upgrade if you don't end up getting the one defaultly normally in the game. Working our way past these enemies, climbing up is where we run into Dr. Wily for the first time and get that leg upgrade. After the dialogue with Dr. Wily, of course, we also now have the leg upgrade, which of course makes us be able to dash. Easily one of the coolest features of the Mega Man X series, and something that would get expanded upon as the later sequels would end up coming out, including adding the upwards boost and the like. In fact, I think every other Mega Man X game after this one included the leg upgrade basically from the very beginning, which comes in pretty good handy right away, and also a lot of fun to kind of dash your way through a lot of enemies. When we jump inside the battle armor mech suit-like thing, we're able to also dash around and take out some enemies using some punching. The good thing about the suit is that you don't get damaged as far as your health bar is concerned, so a lot of times in the game when I get one of those suits, I just kind of rush through a lot of the enemies. That way I don't lose any health and make a lot of ground as far as the level is concerned. For the final part of the stage, though, you have to work your way up a small slope, watching out for a few robots throwing snowballs that end up, of course, getting bigger the farther they go down the mountain, which is a pretty cool effect overall. And then we're entering into the battle against Chill Penguin. Chill Penguin has a handful of moves at his disposal. He'll be able to slide on his belly and kind of dash across the ground. He'll make clones of himself, or two basic ice statue penguins, and then jump up into the air, grabbing the thing in the middle, making them come towards you. Whatever wall you're against, or whatever wall he makes them on, they'll go to the opposite one. And you're able to keep landing in full charged up Z-Buster shots in this case. You can also destroy the clones and take him out that way. Sometimes instead of jumping up and sending the clones your way, he'll instead fire out some ice projectiles from his beak. Either way though, he'll go down in just a little while of time, and we're moving on to the next Maverick. Next up is going to be the hardest part of this run for sure, and that is Launch Octopus. We have a low amount of health. Launch Octopus's stage is relatively difficult as far as the enemies we got to deal with in the game, and him himself is a pretty difficult fight considering we don't have his weakness yet, and won't be getting it for actually quite a bit of time. The reason why we're completing this level now, though, is by doing so, we will of course get the heart thing in this level to increase our health, but also, a lot of the stages in the game, which is really cool, affect other stages if you complete them. So if you're able to complete certain stages, you will actually affect some of the layout of other stages. So, by completing Launch Octopus, we will end up adding water to Sting Chameleon's level, which will allow us to get an item there. We have to deal with two of these tank-like sub-enemies here, where we have to kind of just blast our way through them. They will try to pull us towards them, as well as fire out these weird fish-like hooks that kind of go out in different directions and kind of converge whatever way. They kind of come out in two different patterns. One is very easy to dodge, the other pattern usually ends up hitting me, but just keep firing those shots and take it out. The second fight is a lot harder though, because there are spikes lining the left and right sides of the main platform, and you can easily get pulled towards them and land on those spikes, so be very careful when dealing with this second part of the fight. Once you're able to defeat him, though, we're continuing on to the next part of the level, where we have to take out another enemy to make a part of the ground basically disappear, leading us to eventually the health upgrade. Over here to the right side, you'll use these big giant whirlpool-like cyclone things up into the air, and this will allow you to get onto this ship here. Keep firing at the ship. You'll have to dodge some missiles and some other enemies up here, but eventually the ship will get destroyed and fall down below the water, eventually breaking the ground apart, leading to a secret area. Be careful when the ship does fall, though, because any of the, torpedoes that it ended up sending down into the water are still there when you go, so when the ship passes them, you can easily still get hit by them, which is pretty annoying. Either way, though, enter into this area here where we have to deal with this guy. We'll have to deal with two of them in this stage in particular. We're going to ride on its back and fire at its head as much as possible. It takes a lot of damage in order to destroy this guy. You can also fire at the tail, depending upon where it is, though if it's up in the air, kind of like floating in the water, like above the ground, you'll be able to land plenty of shots directly at the head. Once he's defeated, though, make sure you don't land in any spikes, and we'll be able to grab the health upgrade. Run over here to the bottom right corner, grab the health upgrade. Now we have to do a little bit of backtracking past where we ended up dealing with that ship and now head upwards. And we're going to have to deal with another one of those weird snake robot guys. Fighting another one of these guys, but thankfully the ground's more level. There's no spikes that instantly kill us, so it's a little bit of an easier fight. It's still just as long and drug out at this point in order to deal with him. We don't have a good weapon to take him out a little bit faster. But he's pretty easy to deal with. Sometimes he'll go back underneath the ground, in which case fire at his tail as he's descending into the ground. Then you'll have to wait a few moments. The ground will kind of dust up a little bit. Some of the dirt will kind of come up, and that'll allow you to know kind of where he's coming from and be prepared to jump back onto his back and continue laying in those shots. Once he's defeated, though, we're right near the Launch Octopus boss chamber. With that done, head over to the right, you got a couple more fish that can kind of eat you, and you just keep firing until they're destroyed, and then we're entering Launch Octopus's battle. This fight's pretty tough. We don't have a lot of health going into it, unfortunately, so we have to do our best to make sure that if we're going to get hit, we get hit by projectiles, not by Launch Octopus himself, so it doesn't do as much damage. Launch Octopus has a pretty good variety of moves, including this big tornado-like cyclone move around him, which will keep him in place, but you can't hurt him during this, but you can easily kind of get pulled into it and get hit by it. He'll also fire a bunch of missiles in kind of packs of missiles straight out, as well as he summons these fish robots that come out from both sides of him and will kind of chase you down, so you have to do a little bit of manipulative movement in order to get around. The only good part is, since you are underwater, The physics allow you to kind of have a bigger jump and allow the maneuver a little bit better. This is still a really tough fight if you don't have Launch Octopus's weakness. In fact, I rank him right near the very top as far as the hardest Mavericks to fight in this game without having weaknesses or with a low amount of health at the time. When he is done though, we are moving on to the next level. Like I mentioned during Launch Octopus's level, Sting Chameleon stage changes up a little bit by completing that other level previously. So because of that, we're going to jump into this stage, and thankfully his level is pretty easy as far as grabbing the items. You do have to defeat a pretty annoying mini-boss. Overall though, a pretty easy stage to deal with, and the boss himself isn't too bad in the fight. Now we're going to drop down here into this area here where you can see the water has filled up, and this allows us to do a running dash over to the right side in order to grab the health upgrade. Right from there, we're going to head up here and defeat this mini-boss in order to get the next armor piece. Now this fight is pretty long and annoying overall because he has a lot of health. You're going to want to jump up in order to kind of hit him right directly in the weird eyeball thing he has. His main moves are just being able to jump towards you, which you can easily dash underneath of, as well as he will fire out his big hook and grab you, pulling you towards him and doing a pretty significant amount of damage if he's able to do so. You can actually sometimes get him in a little bit of a loop as far as the jumping is concerned or the attacking goes, and you can just keep hitting him over and over again in order to deal damage. It takes a while, unfortunately, to defeat this guy, especially with the current moves that we end up having. But still, just take your time, deliver their shots. Once he's done, though, we'll be able to get that upgrade. After we defeat him, of course, we're jumping into the Dr. Wily capsule here, and this now gives us our new ability for the upgraded armor. Now, this pretty much allows us to take less damage from the enemies in the game, which ends up being pretty useful overall. Unfortunately, with this ROM hack, you don't really see a change in Zero's armor, though it would have been cool to see kind of a change in it based on some of the later Mega Man X titles, where he ended up getting a little bit of a different outfit overall. Watch out for a couple of the enemies as we're going to dash through here. We have these woodpecker enemies, which I always thought were one of the cooler ones in the game. The fact that they're pecking at the tree, and it ends up causing the little, like, worm, caterpillar, bug guys to kind of come out of the tree because of it. Always thought it was relatively cool. Over here to the right, though, we're going to jump inside one of the giant mech suits and then use it to kind of dash our way through the next little area. Like I said, since we're not losing any health from our main health bar, we're just going to dash through. Yeah, we're going to get hit a bunch, but the armor can actually take a pretty good beating before it ends up blowing up, and this allows us to cover a lot of ground all the way to the Sting Chameleon boss door. Now, unfortunately, we still don't have any of the Maverick weaknesses, so we still gotta use the full charged up shots from the Z-Buster in order to deal damage. Still Sting Chameleon has a couple of moves, including being able to kind of camouflage himself so that he's able to kind of sneak around and be able to get to certain locations, kind of then randomly pop up and appear wherever he's near you in order to kind of do damage that way. He has a projectile he'll fire out, which is a 3-shot spread shot, pretty easy to get in between those shots, and if he's close to you when he appears, he'll usually just use his tongue. The tongue reaches a pretty good amount of space, but it doesn't deal a lot of damage, so if you're going to get hit by any moves, let the tongue hit you. It's not going to do a whole lot to you. He also likes to attach his tongue to the ceiling, swinging around a little bit, causing a whole bunch of spikes to fall down. These will do a little bit of damage, but overall still not too bad. I honestly find the Sting Chameleon fight a lot easier to deal with than the previous launch octopus level that we just had to deal with. Once he is done though, we'll be moving on to the next Maverick. Next up, we're going to be traveling to Storm Eagle, who also happens to be the first of the Mavericks we're fighting in this run that actually we have the weakness for. As we begin the level, head over to the right a little bit and get on one of these conveyor belt moving elevator type platforms. Ride this one up on the left side for a little while, and when you get near the top, after taking out a couple enemies, do a big dash over to the left. This will land you on here, where you can grab the health upgrade for the stage. This is one of the few levels in the game that actually contains 3 of the items that you're able to get as far as upgrades are concerned, as you have an armor piece, you have that health upgrade, as well as one of the refillable E-tank energy tanks that you're able to get. Continue along the level for a little while, blast these guys off of these platforms and kind of run through some of the enemies like this guy here who takes a little bit of damage in order to defeat. Then you're going to get on these platforms moving up and down. Jump on the one on the left here and then blast your way through the glass window and grab that refillable E-tank. Basically, the way these work, if you're unfamiliar with it, is when you end up gathering more health than your currently full maxed out health bar, they end up going into one of those tanks, and then you can use that at any time to replenish a little bit of your health. Continue along the moving platforms to the right, blasting a bunch of these little flame-throwing cannons on the platforms, and then make your way over here. Climb all the way up to the very top, drop it down, and then do a running dash till you land on this platform, and then just keep firing at these explodable tanks. Once they're gone, you find Dr. Wily and get the head upgrade. As you can see, the head upgrade allows you to headbutt the blocks of certain types and allow you to break them that way. We now have all the upgrades for the stage, and we're going to continue over to the right here, jumping on a series of platforms that will fall away when you land on, so you got to be quick, and then you'll land on this ship. This is also a really cool little boss entrance, as you'll enter into here, traveling through down to the bottom, and then landing on this little elevator platform, which rises up. A little bit of explosions later, you're battling Storm Eagle. Storm Eagle, like I said before, is one of my favorites. He has a few moves at his disposal, and we're going to be using the Sting Chameleon move in order to help us take him out later on. But for now, we're just going to fight him with the normal Mega Buster, as it's a pretty easy battle to do so. He's going to start off by trying to throw us away from him using the wings to kind of like push you towards one of the pits on the left and right sides. Once he does that for a bit, he'll fly up into the air and then do a series of dive bombs in a diagonal direction, allowing you easily to kind of dash away and then quickly turn back towards him in order to land one of the full charged up shots in those diagonal directions. He also ends up being able to push you away using his tornado move, which will just pretty much not damage you, but push you towards one of those pits a little bit quicker. And then he has the eggs he fires out, which has his 4 little birds that kind of flutter around and dissipate, and they're really easy to dodge. After landing enough shots, though, Storm Eagle is done, and we're moving on to the next stage. The next level we're going to be traveling to is Flame Mammoth. This is another one of the levels that actually has 3 upgrade items for us to grab in it, and this is the first time we're actually going to use the weakness against the Maverick boss during this stage. Because we defeated Chill Penguin earlier on, the lava in this level has been frozen over. As you can see, we're able to dash across the bottom here. If you traveled this level earlier on, before we fought Chill Penguin, this will all be fire that will end up damaging you. When you make it over here, you're going to dash up. It's a little bit difficult to do so. It may take you a few attempts, but then use the head upgrade we got in the last level to find the Z-Buster upgrade in order to give us the extra full charged up shots. With that new ability, we're able to do a really supercharged up Z-Buster shot, as well as we can now do a very special move if we fully charge up our Z-Buster while having one of the abilities equipped. Over here on the far right side, we're able to grab the health boost for this stage, which you're unable to grab if you don't complete Chill Penguin's level first, since you end up dying from the lava. Head up here to the upper left corner of this area, watching out for a lot of the minor enemies, though they do a pretty decent amount of damage. They're just going to constantly end up hitting me as I'm traveling. Either way, though, jump over to the left wall, break it using the leg upgrade, and this will get you the extra E-Tank. This, of course, now leads us to have 2 of the extra energy tanks. We have all but 1 health upgrade, though we'll be getting the other one we missed pretty soon, as well as we already have all of the extra armor upgrades, the body armor, the helmet, the Z-Buster, and of course the legs. Continue up into the upper right corner, getting past all the miners once again, and enter into this area. Here you can see kind of like the factory that's producing some of the extra robots that we've kind of dealt with thus far with the conveyor belts. I'm going to drop on down and continue on here, where you have some lava that's still dripping from the pipes. It's like the only remnants of like fire or lava that still exist in the level, since we were able to stop it by defeating Chill Penguin earlier on. Take whichever path you like. Either way, eventually we'll be able to continue on and make it to the boss chamber for Flame Mammoth. Here we're going to equip Storm Eagle's maneuver and use that to help us defeat him in just a matter of moments. Flame Mammoth has a couple of moves at his disposal, including being able to put oil or tar onto the conveyor belt that he's on in order to kind of freeze you in place, being able to then run into you by jumping, or to fire his single shot flame shots in your direction. He also likes to jump, which will cause the ground to shake a little bit, giving him an advantage in order to hit you again. After just a handful of those tornadoes, though, he's done, and we're moving on to the next stage. Before we go to another Maverick, we're going to head back to Chill Penguin stage, and here we're going to travel through in order to get the extra bit of health in this level. Travel through like normal as you would, and eventually you'll pass back through where we ended up getting that leg upgrade the first time we ended up traveling through the stage. I'm going to try to do this very quickly, so I'm going to take a lot of damage from a bunch of the enemies throughout the course of this area. But since we've gotten so many of the health upgrades already, most of these enemies are going to barely do a scratch to us. We also have that armor, so pretty much you can just run through a lot of these guys if you wanted to do so. Watch out for a few pits while we're traveling back through this area, passing back where we got that leg upgrade and then heading down this slope. Once you're back onto the outside area, you're going to travel over here, and this is where the mech is located. You're going to use this mech and travel over to the right side, jump out of it, and head up to this platform here. Break out the Flame Mammoth ability of the fire. This will destroy this little thing here, and you can grab the health upgrade. Once you have it, go back to your start menu and use the escape weapon or item or whatever it is, and you'll be able to get back to the Maverick selection screen. And now we're going to be heading to Boomer Quanger's level. Boomer Quanger is based on a sort of insect beetle-like creature. It was one of the weirdest of the Mavericks for me, as I easily as a kid recognized all of the Mavericks and what they ended up representing, but Boomer Quanger always ended up standing out a little bit as far as what he was supposed to end up being. Either way, it is a level that we are going to start off by heading up instead of traditionally to the right, watching out for a series of enemies as we make our way through. There's these little laser traps that are set up where if you run through the little sensor of the laser, you'll end up getting shot at by these little guys that are kind of like floating around. Large portion of this stage, we're just going to kind of dash through, watching out for these turtle robots, and use full charged up Z-Buster shots using the Z-Buster upgrade that can really end up helping us as far as being able to defeat the guys relatively quickly. Get over here to this elevator portion, watching out for the spikes as we're traveling up on the left and right walls, as well as the ones on the platforms, so that we don't end up getting hit by them and get crushed as the elevator moves up. Pretty easy though to kind of maneuver our way in between all them. Once the elevator comes to a nice stop, we're going to be on the outside tower area of Boomer Quanger's level and start heading upwards. As we're traveling up, there's a few enemies, cannons to deal with, platforms that end up popping out of the left wall here, and these will all just aid you as far as your overall movement goes during the course of this area. Now, once you make it to the very top here, you can either use Boomer Quanger's move to grab this health upgrade, or use a full charged up Z-Buster Chill Penguin maneuver to make this platform, ride that off the right side here, and you can easily jump up to grab the health upgrade. That's the only one of the items that's located in Boomer Quanger's level. So a bit of a pain if you don't have either Chill Penguins or you haven't completed this level already, but since we've done that, we're able to easily get it and continue heading up. Boomer Quanger, because of his overall movement, is a relatively difficult battle if you just use the X-Buster to fight him, but since we do have his weakness, which is launch OCTOPUS's missiles, this ends up being a pretty easy fight. Boomer Quanger likes to teleport very quickly around. He's very similar in some regards, and as far as I always thought, to like Quick Man from Mega Man 2. It's just very fast-moving Maverick. He throws out the horns on his head that kind of cycle around a little bit like a boomerang type of thing, as well as he'll dash towards you, grabbing you and throwing you up into the ceiling, doing a pretty good amount of damage. His teleports, though, you're able to choreograph using the homing missiles from Launch Octopus in order to keep delivering shots to him and defeat him in just a matter of moments. Next up, we're traveling to Spark Mandrill's level, and this is a level that contains a health upgrade as well as another one of the Energy Tank's E-Tanks. It's a little bit of a pain though to grab this item. You want to actually head down these ladders here and heading over to the right side. Against this far right wall, you're going to want to switch to Boomer Quanger's item, and you're actually going to use that to help you grab this tank over to the far right. Bit of a pain to do so, but you want to kind of do a little jump up into the air, then fire it out, and that should grab it. Once you have it though, you have to do a little bit of backtracking past some enemies and start heading upwards. Work your way through a series of ladders so that you can make it to the next portion of this stage after dealing with plenty of these annoying little mech robots. Once here, you have these guys that kind of appear, these bird-like guys that dash on through, causing a little bit of light to shine for a few moments, so you're able to kind of see a little bit better in the dark. They end up doing a tiny smidge of damage if they end up running into you though. Head on down and enter into this small little mini-boss, sub-boss level, and use Storm Eagle's maneuver to really help you defeat this guy really quickly. Storm Eagle's move destroys the little bouncing blobs that he's able to fire out, and it won't take very long, even if he's bouncing around the room, in order to defeat him. Once he's done, continue on into the stage, going through a couple of series of hallways and a few normal kind of enemies to deal with, even if it's a little bit difficult to see where things are kind of coming at you. Head past this turtle guy, and then you're going to do a little bit of a jump off of this wall, and you gotta time it just right so you're able to boost off the wall and then clip onto the very edge of the platform and bounce your way kind of upwards in order to grab the health upgrade for this stage. Once we have that upgrade though, we just have to continue on through the rest of the level. It's pretty easy to get through. Just be careful of getting hit and dropped into one of the many pits that are spread out throughout the course of this area here. It's very easy to kind of fall down. Once you enter the boss chamber though, equip Chill Penguin's move, and this is what we're going to use to take out Spark Mandrill. This is a really cool kind of thing. When you fire at Spark Mandrill using Chill Penguin's move, you end up freezing him in place. He'll then automatically break out of that freeze state, and then if you time it just right, you can fire another one and freeze him immediately before he's able to pull anything off. Even if he starts going into an animation of doing another maneuver, such as the spark move sending them around, as soon as he breaks out of the ice, he always does the arm up animation, and this allows us to keep hitting him over and over again until he's done, and we're moving on to the 8th and final Maverick stage. Now we're in the final Maverick level. This contains the last couple upgrades we need to grab. It also contains the special super item, normally the Hadoken in normal Mega Man X. In this case, it can give us the ultimate move of being able to use Zero's Blade, which has ridiculous power in this particular ROM hack. First off, though, you have to complete the stage normally. We're going to grab the last few upgrades along the way, complete Armadillo's battle, and then we have to come back to the stage and revisit it in order to get that final upgrade. I'm sure those who have played this game a million times like I have are very familiar with what you have to end up doing, but pretty much what you have to do is we grab that. Basically, when you first start off this part, make sure you're behind this spiky armored tank thing that's moving, grab the final energy tank refillable thing, and then you have to deal with this guy. He's pretty slow moving. Eventually he'll die from landing in spikes, but he's annoying because he can instantly kill you. And then we have to grab the other item a little bit later on through another battle against that guy before we make it to the final kind of like moving minecart-esque thing, like this thing right here, in order to make our way to the very end of the stage. I'm just going to jump on it, and we can use this to kind of ride through a series of the miner guys, get past a bunch of the bat guys, and jump over, dropping down here. Head over to the left side, and we're going to take out this guy first. You can keep mashing the Z-Buster, try to take him out with full charged up shots. Honestly, though, the best way to deal with him is Flame Mammoth's move. That seems to do a pretty good amount of damage. Make sure he's done before this spot, and then climb up and grab the final health upgrade. Once you have that, continue over to the right side, getting onto the final minecart, which is going to take you all the way to the end of the level and Armored Armadillo's battle. When you make it to the end of this section, though, normally, when we're trying to get that final item, we're going to jump up to the top portion and get to the platform right above this. But for the first part here, we're going to jump into Armored Armadillo's battle. We're going to use Spark Mandrill's weapon to help us out. If you hit Armored Armadillo with a spark, he actually goes apart from his armor. Once he does so, you can just keep landing in normal shots with it in order to hit him. He has a couple of maneuvers, including turning into like a rolling ball, bouncing around the room. In fact, you can hit him in this form once you've gotten rid of his normal armor, as well as he has a cannon shot that he will fire out slowly towards you. Once he's taken care of, though, we then are able to go into the Sigma levels of the game, but before we do that, we have to go back to Armored Armadillo stage. Once we go back into Armored Armadillo's level, unfortunately we do have to travel all the way through the level again. Now, hopefully, throughout the course of you playing the game, you've earned a few extra lives, or you're going to have to go back to the level a couple of times. Either way, basically what you got to do is travel through the stage all the way to the very end of it, and when you make it to the very, very end, you have to climb up the wall at the very end of the stage after jumping off that final minecart-esque platform, and then get up to the very top of the wall where you'll grab a health replenishment, and then once you're up there, kind of like walk around for just a moment and then drop on down into the pit below, and then you'll respawn after you die back at the area right after the second one of these moving platforms before you end up having to deal with the second of those moving big arm spiky tank guys. Like right here is where you'll spawn. So you'll go right through this, travel all the way through this area. Thankfully, you can fast dash all the way through. Get on this vehicle, and then ride this through. Now, in other versions of the game, as I've heard, like the PC version of Mega Man X, it actually requires you to have full health along with all the upgrades before you make it to the end. In this version, or in the SNES version, you don't need that. You can just kind of climb up here, grab this item, and then drop down into the pit. Repeat this multiple times. I think it's 5 times total, and then you will be able to get the last of the normally Dr. Light chambers, in this case Dr. Wily chambers, where we will get our final upgrade. Once we have that final upgrade, use the escape item, head back to the main menu, and then travel now into the Sigma stages. So now we enter into the final stretch of the game, which is the Sigma stages. There's a couple of these levels, and we have to slowly rematch all the Mavericks that we fought throughout the course of the game. When we make it over here, we have to go up a series of platforms, slowly kind of like moving their way back and forth and making our way up to the top. There's some annoying enemies here. I've always had some trouble with them, but thankfully if you kind of make a jump towards them, you're just going to fall on the platform that you were trying to jump off of, so you don't end up getting like kind of knocked back off of the platform you're on. Either way, we're going to kind of bulldoze our way through a lot of this. Thankfully, we got a lot of the upgrades, so because of getting all those, we can take a pretty good amount of damage before we end up really having to worry about too much. When we make it up here, though, we do run into Vile, which sets off a series of little cutscene things, and then we have to deal with Vile the second time around, where, once again, we can't hurt him in his main kind of like battle mech suit, and we end up getting captured for a second time, just like the beginning of the game. This battle is a bit annoying though, because we have so much health, we can't defeat Vile, but he can still of course beat the crap out of us. It's still very slow though, since we have all those health upgrades. But either way, when you get all your health drained, he'll capture you, a little bit of a cutscene, then we actually get into the real battle against Vile. Now, when the real battle ends up beginning, you do have a few options. Thankfully, we have that full, awesome Z-Buster shot, so we can do a pretty good amount of damage to Vile using that, but he does end up having a few weaknesses as well. Once the battle begins, though, I'm going to switch on over to the Rolling Shield from Armadillo and use that to hit him. As you can see, he does a pretty good amount of damage. He can dash pretty well, jump up into the air and fire missiles that will end up hitting the ground and causing a spread shot of projectiles over to the left and right sides. Pretty easy to dodge, and we're able to keep landing those rolling shields until he's defeated. After the potentially heartwarming scene here with Mega Man X, we then move on to the next portion of the level, bouncing on a few platforms, as well as we have those lasers that end up activating those little annoying guys that fire shots at us. This next portion here is extremely annoying for me, because I'm trying to work my way up the walls and I end up getting hit a lot. Now, of course, if you actually stop, take out these guys instead of what I try to do, it'll be a lot easier to do so. You can use also some of the moves, the special moves from the Mavericks, to help you out during this section as well, but I'm pretty stubborn when it comes to this part, so I just kind of rush my way through. Either way, when we enter into this boss chamber here, we have the rematch against Boomer Quanger. We're just going to pull out, of course, the missiles from Launch Octopus and use them to help us battle him. Overall, still a pretty easy battle, watching out for the boomerangs he fires out, jumping out of the way of the horn grab that he tries to do, and Boomer Quanger's done in just a matter of moments. Now, as we continue through the stage, we have some Mets waiting for us. It's awesome to see them, of course, in the Mega Man X series, and lots of enemies. Defeating a few of those will get us a little bit of extra health. And then, when we enter the boss chamber on the end here, though, it's time for the actual boss of this stage. Pull out the Shotgun Ice, aka Chill Penguin's move, and here we have the spider. Now, what the spider does is there's 4 pillars. He forms little lines between the pillars and then works his way downwards, going left and right across the lines that form. When he gets to the bottom, though, he opens up for attack. When he does, we're going to land in a shot using that ice maneuver in order to do a pretty good amount of damage. Also, when he goes to the top, though, he will drop little spider robots that kind of scurry around the ground. We can easily jump in between those and get ready to still land that shot. Now, if you get hit by the little spiders, you're perfectly fine. You're going to take a little bit of damage, but not much. If he hits you, though, the big spider body, that's what's going to deliver the most amount of damage during the course of this fight, which can be pretty annoying. But overall, just keep landing in those shotgun ice moves, and eventually he will go down and we're moving on to the second of the Sigma stages. When the second level begins, start heading on over to the right, and you have these moving platforms that are kind of moving around these set paths. Gotta watch out for some annoying little bat guys. Thankfully, they don't damage you very much, but they can potentially knock you down into a pit below. Once you make it over to the far right, though, start working your way up by climbing. There's another one of these ostrich type of guys waiting for you, and then you're going to enter a boss chamber for a rematch. And this is the rematch against Chill Penguin, so pull out Flame Mammoth's weapon, and we're going to use that in order to damage him. Thankfully, the flame, though, does a really cool flame effect around Chill Penguin that we can keep delivering shots in against him and do quite a bit of damage. It won't take very long, though, for him to drop and move on throughout the level. During the next portion of the level, though, you can hit a bunch of these guys as they're kind of getting ready to jump into their mechs, which is pretty cool. And you can get into the mech yourself and use that to kind of ride through, take a bit of damage, and then make it to this ladder on the far right side. Once you do end up making it over here, though, start working your way up either the left or right side, whichever one you end up preferring. There's a couple of platforms moving back and forth during these sections, some cannons on the walls on the right side. Usually I end up going up the left side. I find it a little bit easier to kind of dodge some of these guys. Once you're out, though, to the main area, though, it's going to be the rematch against Storm Eagle, so be prepared and pull out that Sting Chameleon weapon. Steel Chameleon has a really awesome ability since it's a 3-shot spread shot he fires out, and this will allow you to easily hit Storm Eagle as he's dashing in diagonally from the left and right sides especially. Does quite a bit of damage, so after just a few moments, though, Storm Eagle is dead, and we're continuing on. The only thing you want to worry about, though, during the course of the Storm Eagle rematch, if you're using Sting Chameleon's move, is that you also want to use that move against the boss of this stage. So you want to make sure you keep a little bit of it so that you'll be able to at least battle them. Or you can refill it, of course, throughout other means throughout this portion. Anyway, after we climb up a series of ladders, there's a lot of annoying little enemies. Throughout here, we enter into that boss room. So, equip back that Sting Chameleon move, even though I accidentally do the homing missiles. Don't worry, I correct that before the fight ends up beginning. And we battle this guy here. He basically has a nose and 2 eyes that we have to fight. Use Sting Chameleon's move in order to hit the eye that ends up being exposed, and then during this portion here you have to kind of slide your way up and down the wall, jumping ever so often, and then hit the kind of center nose portion that keeps moving. Once the walls detract and you're able to get a better shot, then keep firing at the eyes. Once one eye is defeated though, and the nose is gone, you'll have to focus on the other eye, which won't take long before it drops, and you're moving on to that next level. As the next level of Sigma's stages begin, start climbing up either the left or right side, but you're going to want to jump to the left, and immediately, as soon as you get up to the top, deal with a turtle robot before entering to another boss chamber against Armadillo, so be sure to bring out Spark Mandrill's weapon in order to battle him. Once again, wait for him to kind of give you an opportunity, and then blast him with one of the sparks, causing his armor to dissipate, and this way you can easily just keep on hitting him with those moves. Every time you're able to jump in between those shots, you can keep delivering those Spark Mandrill abilities, and you just keep damaging him pretty quickly and he'll end up dropping. After that fight though, of course the level will continue for a tiny little bit, not much though. Take out a couple of these minor guys. I always love these bats because you're able to get a little bit of health, you can refill some of the sub-tanks, E-tanks, whatever you want to call them, and then enter into this rematch against Sting Chameleon. Now his weakness is Boomer Quanger's move, which of course we didn't have the first time around, but now that we do, well, he doesn't really stand much of a chance, does he? So we're going to be able to jump up into the air and hit him while he's kind of hanging from his tongue on the ceiling. Each one of these ends up doing a pretty decent amount of damage to him, dropping him off of the ceiling. He will still get some moves off, but thankfully they don't really do a whole ton of damage. You will have to wait a little bit if he ends up disappearing into the background, but once you deliver that final shot, we're moving on the level. Now, as we continue on, work your way down just a tiny bit, because boom, right away, you're right into another boss encounter. This is another rematch, and this is the rematch against Spark Mandrill, who we did defeat with the weakness last time, and we're going to defeat with the weakness this time around, which is, of course, Kill Penguin. So wait for the battle to begin, and just immediately launch that shot out at him, freezing him in the ice, and every time he ends up breaking out, just immediately hit him again. You do have to wait for that right moment, though, so you can get the freeze ability to happen, but if you time it just right, it won't take long and he's done. Now, as the level continues onwards, take out these fish robots that are trying to pull you towards them. You can kind of just dash on through. There's a lot of them. They'll kind of like eat you up, but you can just keep firing with the Z-Buster. Take him out in a few seconds, and then it's the rematch against OCTOPUS, which he actually has a couple of weaknesses, which is really cool. First off, use Boomer Quanger's move, which will end up, after a few hits, cutting away the tentacles around him, stopping him from being able to use some of his maneuvers. It's really cool that you have this, but that's not his main weakness. Once you end up cutting the tentacles away, then switch over the rolling shield and use that in order to continue the battle. Now he can still fire out missiles, he can still end up doing that like tornado-like move a little bit, but you can just end up hitting him with those rolling shields in order to keep doing quite a bit of damage and end up dropping him. Now we have the next part of the level, which isn't too far, a little bit longer than some of the others. We do have the resurgence of these lasers that appear that end up firing at you when you run on through them and end up setting them off, eventually being able to hit the door and battle Flame Mammoth again, so pull out Storm Eagle's maneuver and start using those tornadoes in order to take down this ancient pachyderm. After that rematch, run through a very straight small hallway, and then equip Boomer Quanger's move in order to fight the final tank of this particular level, the real boss of the stage. This move ends up doing quite a bit of damage. Now, of course, he can crush you if he ends up getting you in between. This ends up being, though, a really easy fight with this weakness. Just make sure that you're not standing on the bottom moving platform when he ends up kind of reforming or firing out his projectile out at you. This thing does a lot of damage, but if you're able to jump over it, you can keep landing those boomerangs at him, damaging him quite a lot, and once he's done, we're moving on to the final level of Mega Man Z. Now that we're at the final level, start off by climbing up. You have two little spots on the left and right walls that form these little worm caterpillars, the ones that we saw back in Sting Chameleon's level that ended up coming out from the woodpecker trees. You can kill them if you want to kind of replenish some abilities. We're going to cheat a little bit though. Since we have full health, why not use Zero's ultimate move, which is replaced from the Hadoken in Mega Man X with the giant saber in this version that take out not only the dog of Sigma, but also Sigma's first form. So wait for the battle to begin, and then as soon as it begins, we're going to do a quarter circle to the right forward and blast him with the saber in order to instantly defeat the dog. Once the dog's done though, we're going into the Sigma battle. Now, for Sigma's fight, it's a really easy battle normally. He just kind of dashes diagonally between the left and right walls, back and forth, working his way down. It's actually pretty easy to kind of like match him up, know where he's going to go, and be able to land those shots in. But if you have full health, only if you have full health, and you grab that Hadoken, or in this case, the saber, launch in one of those saber shots, instantly defeat him, and we're moving on to the final form of Sigma, where we're going to be pulling out the rolling shield in order to help us out. Once the battle begins, get on to either the left or right of Sigma's rolling fists that are kind of moving around, and then start launching in those rolling shields. Every one you do will do a little bit of damage, and you can just keep hitting them over and over again to do quite a bit. He has lightning that will come out of the hands themselves. The hands will kind of move back and forth from the left to right side depending upon which one you're on. He will fire out some projectiles and flame, but heck, if you're able to stay on the hand, it's a little bit difficult to do so, don't get me wrong. You'll be able to keep landing those shots in, and Sigma will drop, and you can sit back and enjoy the ending to Mega Man Z. So there you have it, Mega Man Z, aka Mega Man X, special little ROM hack. I love this game. I love this game so much. So I was so happy I got a chance to replay it and redo it. This time playing as Zero. Not much of a difference, don't get me wrong, but still, I love playing this game. Easily my top 5 Mega Man games of all time. Like Mega Man 2, 4, 6, and X are in the top 4 for absolute sure. I love a lot of the other games as well. I thought the Mega Man X series, as we got farther on, got a little bit too complicated, a little bit too many collectibles for my liking, a little bit too much going on overall, but still, I love the Mega Man games. I wish they were still making Mega Man X titles. Mega Man X8 in particular was actually really well done. For those who may not have messed with it, I do highly recommend it. I wish that we would end up seeing some sort of sequel to that and see Mega Man X9. Or see sequels to Mega Man 10. Come on, Capcom. I know, like, the series is a little bit dead to you, but I would love to see more Mega Man titles. Love these games so much, and would love to see more from them. So even though Mega Man X ends up being my favorite, I still end up liking a lot of the Mavericks that we got to see in the later Mega Man X series. But let me ask you guys, what is your favorite of the Mavericks from the Mega Man X series? I mean, I love the guys from here, don't get me wrong. I end up really loving Neon Tiger. He's one of my favorites. I love Bubble Crab. I don't know why, but I always liked him. I like Morph Moth. And then I love stuff like Duff McWhalen is amazing. And then, of course, my absolute favorite, as far as names are concerned, maybe not the Maverick himself, but the absolute best of the Mavericks' names is Bamboo Pandemonium. Just an absolute amazing name overall. But Bamboo Pandemonium is probably my overall favorite Maverick name. So, what's your guys' favorite, though? Favorite name, Maverick, and favorite overall Maverick as far as level, abilities, design, whatever it may be. Let me know in the comment section below. Then we see the very end, though, of course, we get a little bit of a comment from Sigma himself, basically saying, ha ha ha, I'm still alive, and we're gonna fight you again in another game. So there you guys go, though. That is Mega Man Z, this ROM hack of Mega Man X. I'd like to thank you so much for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.